Man. All right.
Before we begin, I feel necessary to establish a definition. According to Wiktionary.org,
A fine source.
Sure. Race baiting. Noun. The act of using racially derisive language, actions, or other forms of communication in order to anger or intimidate or coerce. With that established, show opens. Usually it opens with a quick clip from a match at a house show somewhere or something. This time it opens with a clip of a promo. And it's Pez Whatley and Jimmy Valiant. And they are dancing, they are clapping, they are stomping, they're having a grand old time. They're talking about Paul Jones and his army and how they're going to whip these men. And then Valiant calls Pez, quote, the best black athlete in the world. And a look comes over Pez's face. And at this point, the video stops.
You know, sometimes we talk about how, my God, the subtlety was so amazing. This was not one of those times.
There's nothing subtle about this.
There was no subtle whatsoever in this. No subtlety. He flipped his lid.
Wahoo McDaniel versus Rossi. He explained the Crockett Cup was coming up. Some teams were, in fact, headed to New Orleans early to adjust to the climate of the city and the building itself.
Oh, man. That's some serious business right there.
Mm-hmm. So they did some stuff. Wahoo hit a bunch of chops and an elbow smash for the pin.
Yeah. Not much to say.
No.
Now, I want to go back briefly to this Pez Whatley angle before we get into more of this.
All right.
So, to recap, Jimmy Valiant proclaims his friend Pistol Pez Whatley the best black athlete in the world.
In the world.
In the world. The moment he says these words, Pistol Pez Whatley stares a hole in him, and as we will soon find out, flips his lid.
He became pissed off Pez Whatley.
He became pissed off Pez Whatley. They go back to the announcers, and Tony says, we don't understand why it's happened. He can't figure out why Pistol Pez Whatley
throughout the show,
is
no one could.
So angry.
They were talking about getting an explanation and never got one from Pez.
They're baffled.
Yeah. So, Wahoo won his match. Shivani then interviewed Ron Garvin. In 2016, Ron Garvin would have gotten the what treatment automatically every appearance and every show. In 1986, when he lost his place repeatedly, the crowd would shush each other to give this man a chance to speak.
That's right.
Times have changed. It was a bad promo. He did, in fact, lose his place many times. He wanted a cage match against Ric Flair so Ric couldn't run or get himself disqualified.
This cage match. I can only imagine that, like, they were doing Flair versus Garvin cage matches and Flair versus Ricky Morton matches all around the Horn for the next 2 years in every available city. Because this Ron Garvin thing has been going on since at least December.
Yeah.
And it's going on for another 2 years.
Yes.
Or no, it's
year
at
and a
least
half.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
Jesus, can you imagine?
I hope you enjoy Ron Garvin challenging Ric Flair to cage matches. There shall be more. Tony Schiavone interviewed Jim Cornette. He ran down the Road Warriors and the Rock and Roll Express, saying he hoped both those teams advanced in the tournament so the Midnight Express could beat them on their way to winning that $1 million prize.
Can I mention, by the way, that rugged Ronnie Garvin, he always wears that towel around his neck.
Yes.
It's embroidered now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Stepping up.
It says Ronnie Garvin on one side. Not Ron Garvin. Ronnie Garvin.
Yeah.
The other side says Hands of Stone. On a little towel around his neck. And I bring it up because last week, when we watched some of that AWA, and that fan had sent in a blanket that said Sean and Marty.
Yes.
The worst script embroidery in the history of man. Pretty sure that person did his towel as well.
Hey.
It was bad.
It's possible. It's possible. So we got Midnight Express versus Phil Brown and Wee Willie Wilkins.
Wee Willie Wilkins, or as Jim Cornette called him, and I quote here, so don't get mad at me, the world's biggest midget. Cornette was on fire.
Cornette, as long as... And the key for this whole review of this segment should be Jim Cornette said it, don't get mad at me. He was not happy about the quality of competition the Midnight Express were facing. He asked, "What's this guy's name?" They said, "Phil Brown." Cornette said, "Well, he sure is."
Wow.
Then he noted that Nighthawk was a dark horse in wrestling.
Nighthawk has about 4 weeks left in this business, Vinny, so.
Yeah. So they're talking about how the Midnight Express, despite being world champions, were the 3 seed in the Crockett Cup.
3rd seed, that's right.
Because they're a defensive team. And since then, they have been extra aggressive and vicious.
They're gonna show us.
Yeah.
They mentioned, by the way, they reminded us that the winner of the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup will receive $1 million.
That's right. Just for that one weekend payoff.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of money.
No wonder everyone's so excited about it.
It was a big deal.
It is. That's the point.
Yeah.
They've spent weeks and weeks building this up.
Mm-hmm.
There is a large prize, and all of the participants are hoping to win the money.
Yes.
Why is this so goddamn hard nowadays?
Because they'd all lose 6 times on TV leading up to it.
Jesus.
Say wins and losses don't matter. Let's see. Cornette's other line, by the way, talking about a match with Wahoo McDaniel and Jay Youngblood. He said he'd have no reservations about fighting Indians.
Reservations.
Yeah.
Let me talk about Wee Willie Wilkins.
Yeah, I don't know what happened here. Go ahead.
Fucking sucks.
Well, there's that.
God bless the guy. So, as everyone knows, he was a little guy who thought he was a big guy and thought that he was too good to be a jobber. And so, it was all over for him. Once everybody else got word of it, he was a jobber. Cornette just buried this guy at every opportunity. And the dude didn't help himself because his job, whether he thought he was too good to be a jobber or not, his job was to do jobs. But instead, he went out there and they're beating the shit out of the guy, including giving him a neck breaker on the cement outside. And as soon as he gets back in the ring and makes a tag to get the hell out of there, he just stands up on the apron like there's nothing wrong. And then he vaults over the top rope back into the ring. He vaulted over the top rope, and then he vaulted over the top rope again. And then he gets his ass beaten outside and he vaults over the top rope. And I'm like, how has no one just beaten the shit out of this guy yet? This Wee Willie Wilkins. So anyway, then he lost.
Yeah, they did not. It wasn't a shoot. They just beat him up forever and won with a rocket launcher.
Whatever your job is, do your job. You know what I mean?
It will help you in the long run.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it, but there was a quote from somebody, and they were talking about how, you know, there are people that work at the gas station or the library or whatever job it is, or a fast food restaurant. And sometimes people make fun of people that work at a fast food restaurant. And this person said, you know what? Every job is important. What's going to happen when you want to go through the McDonald's drive-thru late at night to get a cheeseburger and there's fucking nobody working there? You're going to be really pissed off.
I've had that happen, and I was.
Everybody's job is important. And when you're a jobber, it's a very important job. Your job is to try to get over the stars. So go in there and do your goddamn job. If you don't like it, quit. But go in there, and if that's your job, go in there and do it.
I have to admit, you're right.
There's plenty of jobbers that were greatly respected.
Yeah.
Not Wee Willie Wilkins.
We'll get to one soon on the show. So Shivani interviews Pez Whatley. It's Pez's time to speak. And he pulls out a pair of scissors and a lock of hair, which he reveals is from Jimmy Valiant's head. He explained what was going on, and he said, direct quote, "I spit on the honky."
I spit on the honky. The Pistol Man's got it done, he says.
Pistol Man's got it done. He said he was not just the best black athlete around, he was the best white athlete, Chinese or Mongolian.
Jimmy ain't nothing but a hillbilly.
Hillbilly, yes. He said he was not really from the city.
I had a author on the show, and she was talking about the Appalachian area, where the term hillbilly is an extremely, extremely derogatory term. We don't think about it here in Washington. Washington, all we know is there was a show called the Beverly Hillbillies.
And a wrestler named Hillbilly Jim.
And a Hillbilly Jim.
And all these people were very happy.
But there are certain areas of this country where you call somebody a hillbilly, those are some...
You get punched. If you're
or
lucky.
worse.
If you're lucky.
Could be much worse.
Yeah.
But that's what he called him, a hillbilly and a honky.
Yeah. So they show the full clip. And Valiant calls him the best black athlete in the world, and he immediately becomes pissed off Pez Whatley.
Now, before you go any further, I just want everyone to know this, that when we watched the first half of this video, and we were alerted that we were going to see the whole thing, if you would have told me, Brian, I want you to imagine how this turns out, it is impossible that I could have done justice to the way this actually turned out. It was a million times better than I could have ever imagined in my mind's eye.
When you see the whole thing, you have to understand they're both dancing at the beginning. They're both loving life.
Oh, yeah.
Just ecstatic to be there. And then Valiant drops his line about being the best black athlete in the world, and Pez's mood flips. But not Jimmy's. And Jimmy stomps, and he claps.
Another guy who didn't get it.
And he stomps, and he claps. And he stomps, and he claps, and he turns around, and Pez headbutts him and drops him.
That dropped him.
Pez is going after him. Pez conveniently had scissors in his pocket, just in case such an occasion occurred. And he's going for Valiant's hair. David Crockett frantically trying to break it up.
David Crockett is screaming Pez at the top of his lungs.
What are you doing?
Repeatedly. No, just the name Pez.
Pez.
Pez. Audience is screeching.
Yep. And Pez shoves Crockett away. He cuts off Valiant's ponytail, and he was shouting. I'm not even sure who he was talking about, but I definitely heard the words honky and also black boy. Then he went back to the studio, where he cut a fiery promo about beating up hillbillies.
He eats hillbillies for breakfast. Mm-hmm. This was the best thing I ever saw. Pez Whatley must go into the WWE Hall of Fame. I will not stand for it if he does not go in.
I won't lie. This was a fantastic performance.
It was fucking the best thing on the show, except for Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Which we'll play later.
Yes.
We got some clips.
Then, we got something I didn't know was possible.
You know,
sad Jimmy Valiant.
I've had Jimmy Valiant on the show. Mm-hmm. On a radio show.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was possible.
No.
When Jimmy Valiant was on the show, he was dancing, clapping. I'm pretty sure he did the show while dancing and clapping.
I hope so.
Not this Jimmy Valiant.
No.
This was sad and morose, out of character Jimmy Valiant.
Out of character.
He was Jim Valiant. He was James Valiant.
He said there was hurt in his body. He had no explanation for what had just happened. He said, it's like a man coming home. And I don't know what he said because it was bleep for 5 seconds.
He compared it to when a man comes home and finds his woman with another man. And apparently that phrase was so controversial in 1986 that they actually bleeped it out of the program.
You've got to be kidding me.
No. And you people cry today about PG. They bleeped out that phrase.
Wow. Ric Flair said much worse than that on the show, as we shall get to.
Ric Flair was... I was going to say he's more subtle, but he wasn't.
No.
I don't know why they bleeped it out.
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure he didn't say fucking. Most positive.
See, if he said coming home and finding another man fucking your wife, that would get bleeped.
But I don't think he said that.
Yeah. So he said, maybe I'm just too nice. Give away the shirt off my back to help someone.
I loved when he's trying to figure out why Pez did what he did. And he says, maybe Pez has mental problems.
Maybe Pez had a seizure.
Yeah. Pez Whatley had a seizure.
Which caused him to headbutt Jimmy Valiant.
It caused him to cut off his ponytail with scissors.
Yes.
That's a Grand Mal Caesar right there.
He said Pez was still his brother. He's a loving person. And if Pez had a problem, he wanted to help. In Jimmy's mind, Pez is still a victim at this point.
Oh, yeah. This is just so mind-boggling that he would behave this way over simple words. I can't believe it. He must have had a seizure. He must have serious mental problems.
So, this led to Jimmy Garvin versus this guy.
A random geek.
Eventually, we learned his name was Don Turner. He was quite terrible. Garvin was building up to a feud with Wahoo, so he threw a bunch of chops. And Crockett was talking about Wahoo getting his hands on Garvin. He would start to giggle. This went too long, and Garvin won the squash with a brainbuster.
David Crockett also said that he had never seen a person change like Pistol Pez Whatley had. Oh, yeah?
You've never seen a lot of turns there in Jim Crockett Promotions.
But nothing like Pistol Pez.
Yeah. After the break, Shivani interviews Garvin and Precious. Garvin denied the Wahoo had returned because he hadn't seen him, and Garvin was still refusing to answer his challenge. Jimmy Garvin is from Florida, and the crowd was chanting USA. I don't know what happened.
All I know is they're building up Garvin versus Wahoo pretty good. So good that I want to see it, even though I've seen a lot of Wahoo lately. Yeah. There's not much to get excited about.
And a lot of Garvin.
Yeah.
Ivan Koloff versus Ray Traylor. You mentioned earlier about Wee Willie Wilkins not doing his job. Ray Traylor been doing his job for a long time. Weeks, maybe months. And he'd been doing it well. And they could see, you know what? This guy's got something a lot of guys don't. And so Ivan gave him a ton of offense.
I should have heard David Crockett losing his shit when Traylor was getting things in.
Traylor made a big flurry of offense early. I think he even made a cover, which is unheard of in these squashes. Crockett was losing his mind. Now, all of that said, while Traylor was big and athletic and gifted and obviously had a lot to work with and a lot of he clearly had the most breakout potential of the jobber crew here, he was still really fucking awful.
Dude, is there anybody in WWE today that is worse than Ray Traylor was on this show?
No. I don't know if there's anyone in NXT worse than he was in this show.
Now think about this. Kevin Nash had that stupid claim that it takes 10 years to become a superstar in this business. Probably because he started out as fucking Oz. But here's Ray Traylor in March of 1986, who is a geek, fat job guy in the Crockett promotion. 2 years later, he was headlining around the country with Hulk fucking Hogan.
Yes.
2 years later.
Yeah.
And you know what? When he debuted in WWE, he didn't debut as a geek who went 50-50.
No.
He debuted, he beat the shit out of Coco Beware, if I recall correctly, and then he was fucking attacking Hulk Hogan, and he was a main eventer. In 2 years after doing jobs in this Crockett promotion.
So, Ivan kept trying to give Traylor offense. Traylor was totally blown up by the end, couldn't do much. And finally, Nikita had a clothesline from the outside, and Ivan won. Ivan didn't even beat him clean. A mess of a match. But
Crockett was disgusted with these Koloffs, and he alerted us it's okay to hate Nikita Koloff.
That's right. So, the match ends. They go immediately to Magnum TA at the podium, which is 10 feet from the ring. Magnum TA is there. He notes when he stepped out, Nikita had disappeared real quick. He ran his mouth for a while about wanting a match with Nikita.
The thing with Magnum is he didn't have a lot of range. He essentially was able to rage. He's pretty good at it.
Sure. He was fine. Shivani interviewed Nighthawk.
Nighthawk Coltrane is his name.
Nighthawk Coltrane.
Which is a hell of a name. It's too bad he didn't make it.
Nighthawk Coltrane, first of all, he wanted to know what was wrong with Pistol Pez.
That's not the pistol he knows.
And he also wanted to help.
Presumed he must have been having a mental breakdown as well.
Everyone's worried about Pistol. He said they would work things out. And he left.
Now, it is interesting that the Nighthawk also didn't understand why Pistol Pez got so mad. That's weird.
It's just weird.
It was pretty goddamn clear to me.
Ron Garvin wrestled Tony Zayn for seriously the longest match I ever saw.
And it felt like a match I've seen 10,000 times.
Garvin was out there, and he himself was out there so long he got bored. So he decided to say, what's the wackiest thing I can do to this guy? So he laid Tony Zayn on his belly with his hands stretched out to the sides. He put one foot on each hand. Then he reached over and grabbed one leg and pulled up on it like a Boston crab or half crab. For several seconds, he tried to win with his hold. Then he rolled Zayn over onto his back. This is all that happened. Tony Zayn's on his back. Garvin grabbed one foot in each hand and tried to pin him that way. And even Tony Zayn is like, no, I'm not laying down for this.
I loved when you offered $100 for him to end the match, and he immediately did.
It was not immediate. It was 20 seconds.
Oh, come on.
Ronnie Garvin, if you're listening, you did not end the match quick enough.
Dude, you owe him $100.
I shit you not, this match, the first match we've ever seen on this show, I think. Maybe that one Christmas show with Flair and Garvin, but this match went through a commercial break.
Yeah.
Garvin won with the punch. Shivani interviewed Dusty Rhodes and Baby Doll.
Dude, this guy, he essentially is trying to be Ric Flair, except A, he's a babyface. B, he's really fat. It's just not working.
So, apparently, someone had written something in some newspaper or magazine about Dusty who would have no chance to make it in the NFL.
Or no, I think they said, why aren't you in the NFL?
I guess.
He was trying to phrase it like they were putting him over. Like, man, you could be a wrestling champion and an NFL star.
I see. I misunderstood. Well, he explained he made more money than most quarterbacks.
95% of NFL players, he said.
Yeah. Had houses all over the country and women all over the country, or at least he used to, until Baby Doll settled him down. And he wanted bull rope matches with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. And Baby Doll encouraged him to break Arn's jaw.
Wow.
Angry woman.
Devilish woman.
Shivani announced that one of the matches at the Crockett Cup would be a UWF Championship match.
That's right.
From Bill Watts' promotion with Hacksaw Duggan against Dick Slater. And he interviewed the Horsemen. Tully just said he was better than Dusty. JJ is running down Baby Doll. She says she likes to play Cabbage Patch Dolls with Sam Houston and Jimmy Valiant.
Cabbage Patch Dolls.
I want that to be a skit.
Wow.
Arn said he had no problem wrestling in bull rope or strap matches. He invited Pez Whatley out for cocktails. And he also specifically called themselves the Three Horsemen, which further suggests only ain't coming back. Magnum TA beat Bob Owens with the belly-to-belly in 20 seconds.
I literally was in the middle of typing how long before the belly-to-belly, and I didn't even get it finished before it came out of nowhere.
Thank God somebody on the show was not out there to waste time.
What a goddamn gig this guy had.
Yes.
It just came out every week, won 10-second squashes, and cut mean promos, and was a huge star.
Shivani read a card from fans, wished them a happy anniversary. Also had some birthdays to wish. Happy birthday wishings. Then he brings out Magnum TA and Ron Garvin for an interview, and he says, gentlemen, you're this.
The number 2 seed.
The number 2 seed in the Crockett Cup. Of all the tag teams we could get in the world, you were the number 2 seed. I'm thinking to myself, have they even teamed before?
Who knows?
And Magnum outright says, we are not an established tag team. Garvin, who is not having his best night on the mic, referred to the James Crockett Memorial Senior Cup.
Can you do?
Tully Blanchard versus Bill Tab. By this point in the show, I had long run out of the patience necessary to watch Tully Blanchard put Bill Tab in leg holds.
I did like at the beginning, the only good thing about this match is Tully Blanchard was complaining of a hair pull versus a jobber.
Yes. They announced that Ted DiBiase was out of the Crockett Cup due to injury, and Terry Taylor would be taking his place. That's a poor trade. And Blanchard won with the slingshot suplex. Precious came back out. She called out Wahoo, who arrived. It is funny. Jimmy's out there saying Wahoo's afraid to face me. He's a coward. Then when Precious comes out by herself, Wahoo's right there. This made Jimmy look right. So Precious ran him down. Said Gorgeous would beat him brainless if he wasn't busy tonight. Said Wahoo was a phony Indian with a phony headdress. And Wahoo threatened to whip Garvin, and Precious sprayed some perfume and left. I
thought for sure Garvin was going to come out and jump in, but no. They just remain teasing this match
slow burn
forever.
Listen, you can tell from this the everything. This studio is not a big building. Our locker room backstage, it's not a warehouse. How they're able to avoid each other all afternoon is a mystery.
You know, Garvin and Precious are like a successful version of Mongo and Deborah.
Yes.
Deborah had to have watched Precious to get her mannerisms. And a lot of the phrases, they get a lot of the same, always starts with that. Always starts with that. She calls him Wahoo McDaniels, which of course is incorrect. So it's McDaniel.
So does Crockett, by the way.
But everybody calls her Deborah McMichaels, which is also wrong.
I hadn't thought of that.
It's like Lincoln and JFK, all these coincidences.
It's amazing. Shivani interviewed Ric Flair.
Oh, thank God. Save the show.
Good on this show. Flair starts talking about the Final Four in basketball and says the real Final Four was him and 4 women in a hotel room in Daytona Beach. That didn't get bleeped, by the way. He vowed that the Crockett Cup would be Dusty's last title shot, and Ron Garvin would not stop him from making it to New Orleans when suddenly the Rock and Roll Express's music played and cut him off. So the Rock and Roll Express came out to wrestle Art Pritz and Kent Glover.
I was begging for Apter's Alley at this point. Remember that insufferable segment that in hindsight is like, God, can you imagine the guys he could interview?
Yes.
Be so much better than Art Pritz and Kent Glover against the Rock and Roll Express.
I watched like 0 of this match and just listened to Flair. Flair was on the mic the whole time. He said he was back representing the manly side of the business, while the Rock and Rolls represented teeny boppers in training underwear. Realize, are they not allowed to say bra?
I don't know.
So
isn't training underwear like a diaper?
I guess so. He was bragging about his prowess with women. I said he could have all the teeny boppers too if he consented to them. Well, that's creepy.
He was so mad at the Rock and Roll Express because some random girl had told him that Robert put The Rock in rock and roll.
Well, yeah. Gibson. Like Gibson guitars. So he also did he did an impression of the women who had been in his hotel room the night before. So eventually the Rock and Rolls won with a double dropkick.
David and Tony are just howling at Flair when they show the inset.
Yeah, they're not even holding back. So Flair calls them over to the podium. And it's Morton and Gibson there, and I don't know if I've ever seen a wrestler in a segment as useless as Robert Gibson was here. He would have been better off just going to the back. So Flair explains, Morton, I like women, quote, with full sweaters. The big girls.
Wow.
And he says, one of those girls gave me this.
What did we say about subtlety earlier?
Yes.
There's none on this show.
No. He said, one of the women gave me this, and he holds up a training bra. This is to give to you, to give to your fans. And Morton says Flair's very arrogant. He's forgotten it's the people in the crowd who put them both there. Without them, you and I were nothing. Flair says, I don't care how they feel about me. I love myself either way. So Morton stomps on Flair's glasses. Flair shoves Morton. Morton punches Flair down. And then we get this.
Let's start a little further back.
To carry on. Wherever I go, I don't care if they love me or hate me because I love myself and I know that I'm the best there.
Stomp on the glasses. Flair takes a huge bump.
They're shoving, slapping. They're now going at it tooth and nail. Gibson just backs off.
Listen to David Crockett.
Ricky's got him! Over the top rope! He put him over! Woo! Love it! Ricky Morton has Ric Flair suplex! Down on the mat! He did him! Get him in! Oh, look at him point the finger!
When people tell me that David Crockett sucks,
I used to think that. And you know what? I was a fool.
dude, can you imagine if somebody with that passion, even Mauro Ranallo doesn't have that kind of passion on SmackDown. Imagine if we could get somebody that was that into everything, talking about these great angles and going nuts for them.
He won Worst Television Announcer 86 to 88.
Oh, Christ. Fuck off.
If only you people knew what you were going to get into.
Who?
As far as I can tell, he's still alive. He was born in 46.
Yeah, he's still alive. He was on Flair's podcast, I think.
Well, there you go. He's only 70. Hire him right now.
Dude, he should be hired right now. If you voted for David Crockett for Worst Announcer in 86, your vote should be rescinded.
Yeah.
It's like those people that didn't want to vote Shawn Michaels into the Hall of Fame.
So that was amazing. And that was it. Nothing else on the show worth discussing. Arn Anderson beat Dave Dillinger with some arm locks in the Gourd Buster. Shivani interviewed the Koloffs. They ran down Magnum TA, challenged him to a Russian chain match. Ivan did explain it would be under the stupid touch the turnbuckle rules. Shivani interviewed Wahoo again. He said a woman who stepped out of place was no longer a woman.
He said, anytime a woman steps out of her place and tries to do what a man does, she's no longer a woman. You shouldn't send a woman to do a man's job. And I've mellowed in the past few years. It's like, oh yeah? I put the G in get even.
He did say that. He did say that. He said 2 weeks in a row he's been right there in the studio, and Garvin never has a bad thing to say to his face. And whenever he comes on camera, Garvin's nowhere to be seen.
And he goes, Precious, if you get in my face again, I will not be responsible for what happens.
Wahoo would like Lucha Underground then.
I was just thinking, yeah, you will be responsible.
Yes.
If she gets in your face again and you do something, you're responsible, buddy. It has a baby face.
Yeah. Road Warriors versus Larry Clark and Paul Garner. This is how it's done.
Yeah, they didn't
You
fuck
hit the
around.
ring a house of fire, you beat the fuck out of your opponents, you clothesline them, make them bump under their head, and you pin them. A+ squash match right here.
Animal threw a clothesline like he was a wind turbine. Just mowed this fella over and pinned him.
You had to see it in super slow-mo because he waffled this guy in the head, and the guy taking the clothesline, he was like running right at the camera, and his head stops, but his body and feet keep going, and his whole body is just a straight line, and his pivots around Animal's arm, and eventually it's still a straight line, but his feet are above his head, and then his whole body just drops, and the back of his neck hits first. Glorious.
It was like, I watched it and I thought, that dude's dead. And now they're going to do like some other move. But no, he was dead, and so they pinned him.
Yeah.
Got out of there.
Then they did a promo. They talked about Jim Crockett Sr. was a lot like them, starting from nothing and fighting their way up to the top. That's why this tournament was so important to them. So they were 3-time Tag Team of the Year. They deserved the top seed. They would prove it. And they bailed, and the announcers still had like 30 seconds to kill, and they talked about all they had seen in the Crockett Cup, and that was that. Everyone go watch Flair and Morton. Do not watch anything else on this show.
Yeah, not much to talk about, honest to God. The Flair stuff was awesome, and the stuff with my main man, Jimmy Valiant, and Pistol Pez. That stuff was awesome. The rest of the show is noted you don't need to see. Well, since we got a little time, let's do one last song here. It's from James.